like to call the Village Departmental meeting to order, please. If you'd stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everyone watching at home and welcome everyone here tonight in the audience. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter?
Present.
Trustee Mariscal?
Present.
Trustee Kazan?
Present.
Trustee Gatt?
Present.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Present.
Trustee DeVore?
Present.
Okay, everyone's here tonight, so good to see everyone. We would be at approval of the minutes from the departmental meeting on Tuesday, July 7th, 2020. I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
A motion and a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, you have some correspondence, I believe?
I do. The letter reads as follows. Dear Chief Sutton, a very sincere and appreciative thank you for your time, patience, and expertise during our meeting, Tuesday, August 11th, 2020. Considering your schedule and the gravity of the situations you resolved, the amount of time you allowed us was inordinately high, and you listened to most of our concerns in a patient manner. Above all, you volunteered the services of several village departments to help resolve the problem. You also mentioned several ideas that may result in an amicable out-of-court agreement. Again, thank you. We also want you to know that we will be most cooperative with you, village departments, and those in authority that may assist in resolving the frustrating and stubbornly caused situation. We have made arrangements for a survey of our property, but it will be about another 2 to 3 weeks before they can get to us due to their very busy schedule. Sincerely, Mel and Dawn Yurkovich.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right. We would be at comments from the audience. If anyone would like to address the board, please come forward to the podium, give your name and address, and if possible, keep your remarks to 5 minutes or less. Mr. Marfell.
Yes. Do you want my name and address for the record, Stephanie?
No, thank you.
Okay. So as you all know, I've got it on paper here. So as you all know, I'm a village employee. More importantly, I'm a village resident and have been my entire 44 years of existence. I want to take a second, remove the village logo from my shirt, and speak to you all as a resident regarding the current state of our fire department and the decisions that you have to make in the near future. First, I want to make it clear that my statements today should not reflect my feelings of what this fire department has meant to the village over the years and the numerous volunteers that have volunteered countless hours to keep our village safe. They are truly special people who should be recognized for their service to the village. Just so we're clear, this is an issue that goes well beyond the fire department. This lack of volunteers for the fire department is not just a fire department issue, but a community issue. We have no grade school PTO, we have no high school parent booster club, we have no junior football league, and we have a struggling junior basketball and baseball league. Why do these things not exist? Because no one in this community wants to volunteer. It is my opinion when you all make your decision, there should be 2 major factors considered when making this decision. Number 1, and the most important, is public safety. Which option in front of you is the best option to provide fast, professional service to the residents of this village? It is my opinion that if you look at all your options clearly, the best option, keeping public safety in mind, is to contract with the city of Peoria. These are professional, trained firefighters who are paid and paid very well to perform specific duties while on the clock. If a contract is signed between the village and the city of Peoria, it will be their duty to respond and protect the safety of our residents. How does that differ from a volunteer department? At this current time, as a resident, I'm not 100% convinced that if my house catches fire, that I will have enough trained personnel at my residence in a fast and timely manner. How is hiring a single fire chief supposed to change my opinion? If you can convince me otherwise, then please do so. Number 2, budget concerns, how to pay for it. All the mentioned options include increased spending except one. How do you plan on paying for this extra budget expense? Through hard work from the village officials, the village seems to currently sit in a pretty good spot financially. Is the responsible choice to add the extra expense to the budget or take the potential opportunity to decrease the fire department budget by $100,000 along with getting 24/7 coverage? Would you create a new tax and push the expense onto property owners? Particular trustees have made several comments in open meetings about their displeasure in raising taxes. I would expect those particular trustees to vote no for increased budget spending unless you have a valid idea on how to pay for this other than implementing a new tax. Who would a new tax affect the most? The low income and the elderly. I'm not okay with my taxes going up to support a volunteer department with staffing issues. Would you cut other essential services such as police or public works to fill this gap in the budget? How would budget cuts to police and public works affect village services? Now is not the time to make a decision that comes with increased budget spending with the idea of, we'll have to figure out how to pay for it. Here are a couple of questions I would like answered regarding the current state of the volunteer fire department. Number one, of the current list of volunteers, how many actually show up when called upon other than for parades and public events? Number two, why has recruitment of new members not been a priority before now? It seems that recruiting only became a priority once the pressure was put on. And number three, does the number of fire calls on average justify the expense? Everyone is reluctant to hand over the keys to the fire department to the city of Peoria in fear that it puts us one step closer to being annexed. Irrational spending with no logical idea on how to pay for such spending could also lead the entire village one step closer to being annexed in Peoria. When making this decision, I ask that you put aside all nostalgia, emotions, and feelings and make a sound decision based on facts and numbers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Still open for public comment. Yes, Becky, come on forward, please. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jeanine. You'll be next.
I didn't see you get up, I'm sorry. Jeanette Hillier, 800 East Marietta, Peoria Heights. And I'm here in support of our volunteer fire department and Fire Chief Greg Walters. I would feel very secure if my house caught on fire that our well-trained fire department, our volunteers, will answer that call and will put the fire out. They are trained well. But the main thing that I'm concerned about is this 20% cut the city of Peoria is talking about making tonight. How are their council members feeling regarding taking over the village of Peoria Heights? They're cutting services to their own citizens. This concerns me a lot. Also concerns me at the last meeting when you talked about how much they had lowered the price of the service they will be providing to the village. That's great and it sounds wonderful, and there will be a contract that will guarantee that price, but for how long? How many years before the city will increase that cost to what it's actually costing, and can we afford that? I think Chief Walters' suggestion to hire a chief to have a full-time duty crew during the day will solve our problems. Once we give up our fire station and equipment, it's gone. And yes, I do believe it's the first step for the city taking over the village. Past trustees, of which I was one, and worked on the fire committee, worked hard, as did the citizens, to get our fire service and our volunteers. Yes, we had trouble with funds, but we always managed. We worked it out. I hope you think about this seriously and what the citizens want and what we can afford. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Darsher next.
My name is Becky Darsh, and I live at 1229 East Lake Avenue in Peoria Heights. I didn't really come here prepared to talk because I didn't even know if I was going to be able to, but we were just informed this last week about the gaming and liquor license that's being requested at 4303 North Prospect, which is right next to my property. Currently, We've had TNTs, and the gas station has liquor, and the other Silver Dollar. We pick up more trash in our alley. We have people sitting on our wall, drinking, leaving all kinds of garbage. I just think that the Heights has been trying to, with all the restaurants and everything, there's a lot of class that has come out of an opinion about Peoria Heights with other people that we've talked to. They really think that the Peoria Heights has just done tremendously in bringing to life Peoria Heights. And I just really think a gaming place and a liquor store is not what we want to portray for our city. I don't think we need another one. We've already got enough liquor being sold. Save-A-Lot sells liquor, the gas station sells liquor, that's enough. They can go down on Memorial Drive to Super Liquors. I just don't think that it's an appropriate business to bring into the Heights right now. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, Mary.
You need my address?
Please.
5016 Clarendon, Peoria Heights,
Thank
Mary
you.
Bear. I'm not going to beat a dead horse because I think you all know how I feel about the fire department. But with that being said, obviously you have to have money to pay for it. But maybe Chief Sutton can help me out here. But obviously, can they put some kind of a non-binding referendum on at some point? And not just put it all on their shoulders as far as raising taxes. I'm getting ready to make my second installment tomorrow on 4 pieces of property. Trust me, it's a chunk of money, but I'm willing to pony up some more money to keep the fire services the way we've got it. So.
That is an option, Mary. Yes, a non-binding referendum or a binding referendum, either one.
And how far ahead do you have to do something like that? This fall or a spring election? Your budget's up in May,
Correct.
so I don't know how often they have elections, so.
Yeah, I believe tonight is the actual deadline for that, to put that
November.
on the ballot for.
Can we vote tonight to do that? And it
Yes,
could go on the
yes.
November ballot? Okay.
It's not on the agenda. I don't know that you can vote on
Yeah,
that.
the
if it's not on
the Opens Meeting Act does not disallow new business, so we can make a motion
Okay.
tonight to.
And we did get a legal opinion on that today. We did talk to counsel, and he said, yes, we can. So that is something that is going to be
You don't
just.
have to do it, but it's something.
Yeah, we could do that. Yes, we could discuss that tonight, and they could take action, correct.
Okay, anyone else under public comment?
Janine Steimeling, 726 East Marietta. This is just kind of a housekeeping type thing for you guys. When you bypass someone's name and address, I might know who they are, you know who they are, but someone sitting out there is not going to know who they are. Please always get their name and address. That's it. And I am in favor of keeping our fire, very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Janine. Fred, you want us to bring the microphone to you? Are you able to get? Chris, do you have a remote so we can pick this up on video too, so everyone at home can hear it? You have that? I'm sorry to put you through that, Fred. I want everyone at home to be able to hear what you have to say. There you go, Fred. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, I think the fire department's done a good job and they're well-trained also. But I live in the yellow house on Lake. I don't know if anybody knows where that's at exactly, Lake and Prospect. And we've gone through a lot over the last few years to make it look good and everything else. And I just don't want the riffraff that's running in and out of a place, opening their bottles of liquor after they buy them, and putting them in between that building and ours, which, you know, every 2 or 3 days when I was able to walk, I'd go back there and pick up all kinds of broken glass and everything else. This is just going to add to the mess. And I don't know if there's anything else I could add to try to convince you that I don't think it's a good idea at all. We've already, like my wife said, have plenty of places to buy alcohol within a short walking distance. And I don't think the property was very well kept, even what it used to be. There's always boxes of shirts, like there are now, sitting outside on Lake Street, and you know, there was garbage that I picked up behind the building so it didn't make ours look worse. And I'm just hoping something better than happens this time. And that's all, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi, Floyd Wambacher, 5300 North Glen Elm Drive. A lot of great comments were made tonight, and a lot of thunder was stolen. I'm going to hit on a few of them. As far as the liquor license for this new establishment, to echo someone, let's keep it classy. You know, we're kind of moving in the right direction there. Let's not just throw something in there that's going to draw some revenue, and it's really, unless it's served in a wine glass or a chilled beer mug up in one of the fancy places, we don't need it. Second of all, the fire department, I was ready to just go ahead and throw the Heights Fire Department under the bus and say, let's just get Peoria to come up and do it, and let's find something creative to do with the money that we would save. More to think about it though, and especially in light of the news today with the Peoria City Council's discussion on cutting their services, that will directly affect us no matter what's in the contract. So that now needs to be taken under consideration. My last thing is, my boy's on a 10U baseball travel team that was put together by Heights citizens. We had our season pretty much wrecked due to the pandemic, but there was hope for growth and eventually turning these boys into the next state champions for Peoria Heights. The lack of facilities in this village to field a baseball team that's worthy of going on to the next step and bringing pride back to the Heights the way that they did a few years ago, it's darn near a travesty. We can look around at much smaller locales in the area and see that they have some really good situations going on. And our reliance on the Park District so far for anything other than maintenance of Grandview Drive has sucked. So, bottom line, I'm going to take it upon myself to see how far I can get with it. I'll reach out to private entities. I'm going to, at some point, reach out to you guys. Maybe in the next couple of years, we can find land. We can figure out who's going to pay for developing it, you know, throwing down the equipment and everything, work on maybe sharing machinery with the village to keep it intact, using volunteers to take care of the field and make it something that we can have tournaments here. We could bring in people to come up to the restaurants to spend money. I just want to let you know that it's going to be talked about, and I hope that I have your guys' support on this as well as the community, because this just the next step in trying to develop something here is getting the family involved, getting the kids involved, and you know, partnering with our schools to really make the village shine. Thanks.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Public comment going once, going twice. Public comments closed. We'll go right on to old business. Any old business to come before the board tonight? I just have one thing. I think we've resolved the Lake Street issue, so Dustin, anything you want to add on that? The road's open, so happy to see that. Okay, we'll get right into new business then. The first is discussion of a discussion item, 4303 North Prospect Road, video gaming, cafe, and liquor license request. Mr. Growie, are you here tonight to discuss this? I don't see you. Anyone here tonight to discuss this? Okay, so I spoke with Mr. Growie a few weeks ago. He told me he intended to put a video gaming and package liquor business in his building at the corner, it would be at the northwest corner of Prospect and Lake. I did tell him that's something that I wasn't really sold on. I wasn't so much in favor of at that point, but I wanted to bring it before the board so he could explain his idea and before the board, before all of you tonight. So he didn't show, so he didn't call me, or did he? So, all right, so we'll move on then. The next is an action item. It's a voters registration event in Tower Park on Saturday, September 5th, 2020. Tanisha, would you like to come up and explain what you're wanting to accomplish, please, and welcome.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Oh, I don't want to take my mask off, but good evening. My name is Tanisha Kaysen. I live here on.
Thank you, Dave.
Oh, okay. I'm kind of short, but I live on Montclair Avenue. I had came up with the idea. Me and a friend came up with the idea to have a voters registration event here at Tower Park, and it wasn't going to be based, it's not going to be based on just one particular party. So I wanted to be able to have an event that everyone could come to register to vote, mainly like the younger people or people just that's not registered to vote. Anyways, we were the main focus is safety first. So we are going to practice social distancing, and people are going to be required to wear their mask, and we'll provide like hand sanitizer or whatever. And I want to be able to encourage people to actually get out and vote. So it's just not, I don't want to target one group, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, all of those are invited. And so that's basically what I wanted to do, to try to get people to vote, just to vote, period, just to get registered, and just keep encouraging to vote. I also will have pamphlets available about voter suppression so people can understand different things when it comes to voting and how it's their right to vote. And so I just wanted to bring it to the Tower Park and put some encouragement out there, because we're getting ready to have such a big election. So
thank you for bringing this to us, and you have my full support. I did contact the Republican county chair and the Democratic county chair, and they both agreed to have people here that day to help register. Trustee Weisenberg is also committed to getting the Libertarians here that day, so we'll have people to register, and they'll all, if you can get Sarah a flyer tomorrow or contact her, then we can get more information to all three of those political parties so they can share that on their social media and websites.
Okay, with that, I can't promise one tomorrow.
Well,
because I started back to work. We went back to work this week, so it's been hectic for me, and I actually started back at school too. So, but I can get you, I can work on it tonight, and I can try to get you one this Friday morning. Is that okay?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
We have time.
Okay.
So may I have a motion to approve this?
I just have, I make a motion to approve this, and I was curious, is there plans for, God forbid, inclement weather? Would they be able to move into Village Hall and do that, or?
I second it, by the way, the motion.
Okay. So I got to go, motion and a second. What's your request, Jeff?
In case of inclement weather,
Yeah.
do they be allowed to move into the Village Hall? That's not going to be a problem, is it?
We can work on accommodations.
Thank you, Jeff.
I mean, because it's a nice setting out there, but sometimes weather don't cooperate. So,
That shouldn't be a problem. That's a good suggestion. Any other discussion on this?
Yeah, so will you actually be registering people? We have like a computer where they can actually register? Like if they show up and they've never registered before, will they be able to sit down and actually register? Because I know Illinois does allow online registration.
Yes, that's what I planned on, having people who can actually register people to vote.
Okay,
So, yes.
okay.
Have you determined what the hours you would have this would be?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The hours will be from 9 to 12, and I kind of picked those particular hours because I know, like, being that it's going to be Labor Day weekend, and I'm not really sure whether people will be going out of town due to the COVID, but I picked this time because normally on a Saturday, people are up that early, and 9 to 12 is like for me, that's like an hour where I can go and get some things done. So I think that'll kind of draw people with that timing, that they don't, instead of waiting until the evening, because I don't know if they might be doing something with their family members or whatever. So 9 to 12 was my first pick.
Thank you.
And this is more just of a suggestion, but during that event, if you'd have like polling places, I think there's 4 polling places in the Heights, or is there 5? There's quite a few. But when they come to register, if they've never registered before, sometimes it's confusing finding your polling place.
Right.
So if we could have some pamphlets or some maybe business cards with your polling place information on it, I think it'd be helpful for the first-time voters.
And I'll have that provided. I actually have a person that I'm kind of connected with, and so I'll even not only just have that, I'll have actually like the voting dates and just different things like that to kind of get everybody informed. So,
Outstanding.
yeah.
I also wanted to ask you if you need any volunteers, because I'm sure members of our board would be very willing to help you that day.
That would be awesome. I've asked some friends too to kind of come to direct people and, just kind of not so much like socialize, but kind of get people informed, pass out some pamphlets with information on it. So I'm getting it together. It's coming together, so.
I would also like to point out that Tanisha was the individual that administered the peaceful march we had about 6 weeks ago, which went very smoothly, and it was really a seamless and a really nice event. So I think that you should be recognized for that as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter.
Aye.
Trustee Mariscal.
Aye.
Trustee Kazam.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee DeVore.
Aye.
All right, that passes. We'll see you on that day, and we wish you a lot of success.
All right, thank you.
Trustee Gett, we're still under administration. Anything?
I don't have anything else, Chief.
Okay, we'll move on to fire with Trustee Weisenberg. Trustee Weisenberg, go right ahead.
Sure. I'll start this off real quickly because I know there's several of us who have some questions. I just want to touch on a few things. If irrational spending and budget issues concern this board, Peoria is absolutely the last place you'd go for solutions. Ask any citizen from Peoria, literally any of them. Actually, they're meeting right now to cut essential services, including their fire department. And just to illustrate the history behind all this, in 2017, the city of Peoria, facing an $8 million deficit, proposed cutting the fire department. Representatives of the fire department argued at this time that decommissioning a single truck would diminish public safety. In 2018, facing a $6 million deficit, the city proposed cutting 22 firefighters. In a non-binding advisory vote, the Peoria City Council voted 7-4 to institute these cuts to the fire department. Revenue recommendations were primarily the reason for the proposed cuts to public safety. City Manager Patrick Ewick in 2018 said that the city has been cutting other departments in recent years, sparing public safety operations. We can no longer afford to do that. This was in 2018. It gets worse. Now, along comes 2020, a year for the history books, mind you. The city of Peoria is facing a $40 million deficit. The only place left to cut is personnel, says Mayor Ardis. The city of Peoria is proposing closing 3 companies and almost 40 firefighters. They are in session now discussing this. Not now, very soon. Their meeting is tonight. We're only 6 months into the COVID-19 pandemic. The economists suggest that the economic fallout from this will last 2 to 3 years. Peoria is already cutting public safety, or at least proposing to do so, because of revenue shortfalls. They're not alone. They were doing this and proposing this before COVID-19. I do not doubt the ability of the Peoria Fire Department. I do, however, question their financial house. Cities can't just print money like the federal government. The citizens of Peoria are looking at severe cuts to public safety or steep tax increases. Not my words. This is coming from the city of Peoria. I believe the proposal that Peoria offered us is well-intentioned, but they can't possibly promise the citizens of Peoria Heights something they cannot even guarantee their citizens of Peoria. It is foolish to think that we'd be spared the effects of any cuts if we decided to outsource our public safety to the city of Peoria. The numbers are clear. Peoria is shrinking. Everyone knows it. The solution is higher taxes or increased response times. I'll echo a comment I made last week. I encourage this board to institute the recommendations of Chief Walters. Let's pick the direction we're going to go. We've got a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Weisenberg. I agree with you. We do need to pick the direction we need to go sooner rather than later because we have a lot of work in front of us. And I also am reticent about getting our services out of our control, but we absolutely have to figure out a way to pay for this. We cannot just decide that X or Y scenario is the right way to go and then throw it in our administrator's lap. So over the last few years, we have dug our way out of $1 million deficit hole. Thank you very much to our administrator. And a lot of that at the time was due to cuts. If there were more areas to cut, I would imagine that they would have already been addressed. So the only way to pay for what is being suggested and potentially the safest and most nostalgic way to go is growth and revenue. So I am open to conversation from my fellow trustees as to how we are going to pay for that.
Just a quick comment on that. Everyone received my email about a week ago. I took 5 minutes and went through 2 months worth of expense reports and found $22,000 worth of fluff, stuff that could be cut. We might not all agree on that, but if we're talking about funding our essential services or planting flowers, it's a no-brainer.
Flowers is one thing, but, and I mean respect it. I mean, I know that we're all very, very, this is a very serious decision that we're all very emotional and serious about, but some of the things that were suggested in that email are revenue sources. And I think coming from the economic development sector of this board, we have to understand that growth and revenue is what's paying for these things. So cutting items that are allowing us to get grants in the future is not a good way to solve that answer. Or having us, with some of our publicity and that type of thing is also not the thing to cut, because that's what's actually been the success of our community so far.
Right, and I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to on revenue sources, but I did highlight marketing expenses. I don't think a government body has any business spending public dollars advertising itself. I think the businesses in Peoria Heights do a fine job advertising themselves. I don't think it's the responsibility of a government body to market anything. It's the responsibility of the government body to provide essential services, streets, fire, and police. Paying someone $6,000 a month to write press releases is not an appropriate use of public dollars in any situation. I've brought the issue up before. If it's a good year and we have revenue coming in and we want all the fluff, I'm not going to say anything about it. But when it comes to throwing the fire department out but continuing to fund non-essential services, that just doesn't sit well with me. We're here to fund essential services. That's what the people of Peoria Heights expect, I assume, and that's what we should deliver. No one can argue that marketing expenses are essential services to the to the
No,
definition of essential
I'm
services.
not arguing that, but what I'm saying is that publicity and marketing for our area generates sales tax income, and that cannot be discounted. Now, maybe there's another way to pay for it. We have BDD, we have those types of funds. Maybe there is another way through our accounting that we can do it. But we have to really take a hard look at our numbers and figure out if we can pay for what's being suggested by Chief Walters. Chief Walters has done an amazing job. I love our fire department. Nobody disagrees with it. Here, we have been blessed. And actually, frankly, I think what has happened here is that we've been lulled into a sense of complacency because we have a volunteer fire department and a chief that has gone above and beyond services. It's just unrealistic. It may or may not continue, and I think the likelihood is it won't. And he himself has suggested that we not only need to hire a full-time chief, but also a duty crew, which is, in my opinion, unattainable financially. But if we can figure out how to pay for it, I'm all for it. I mean, the Peoria Fire Department contract is $150,000, more or less. Status quo with a part-time fire chief is about $350,000. These are loose numbers. Status quo with a full-time fire chief is $375,000, and a full or part-time fire chief with dayside duty crew is $500,000.
Just a few comments. Have you seen an actual contract?
No.
Okay,
And
you're-
I understand that the
you're
contract
referencing-
is still under negotiation.
Well, you're
and-
referencing a contract. I've not seen a
No,
contract.
no, I'm just giving you loose numbers. Like,
Okay.
this is what would be loose numbers.
No, I understand that. And I find the $156,000 number suspect. I couldn't imagine keeping the lights on at a firehouse.
It's
For
surprising to me
$156,000.
that Peoria
It's-
was willing to cut that much. I agree with you.
Very surprising, and actually it alludes to the fact that Peoria makes very bad financial decisions, as we can see here that I illustrated earlier. But the problem is we paid $100,000 for a plan, how we're going to behave 20 years from now, and no one said a single thing about not being able to afford it. Not a single person.
But that
Did
was
you-
one
no.
year and we had the funds. It's not a reoccurring expense.
I understand that.
It's just
We
that
budgeted
one.
for it. We budgeted for it,
Yeah, for 1 year, not a reoccurring expense.
but we afforded it, did we not? And no one complained about it.
No, we all voted, yeah.
I'd like to make a couple comments, Trustee Weisenberg. First of all, nobody's throwing the fire department out. There's a cause and there's an effect. Obviously, this was brought up because Chief Walters' retirement. Obviously, this is not I've said it before, not a Peoria Heights issue, but a national issue regarding volunteerism. So nobody's throwing them out. I think that everybody here is open to different suggestions. That's why the board asked me to go out and get the options. And going back to your numbers, it's not $6,000 a month for press releases. It's a max of $3,000. And as far as my explanation on that, I've said that numerous times, that we have cut numerous areas in marketing to offset that cost. So there's a lot of expenses we no longer have in marketing because of that. And as far as the $153,000 and why that was dropped significantly, I explained that last meeting as far as just a typo regarding battalion chief and how much that would cost in addition. It was $100 and the figure was actually calculated at $1,000. So that's the reason that dropped that we discussed last meeting. But if you have any questions regarding Peoria, I know that their Assistant Chief Bachman is here. I'd be more than happy to answer them, I know. But nobody's throwing the fire department out. I think we're all here to get a solution. We know there's a problem. Public safety is our top priority. But like I said last month, if we go with the part-time or full-time fire chief and a paid duty crew, we have to figure out how we're going to pay it. We just dug out of a hole a couple years ago, and we're in really good shape, especially with what just happened with COVID and still going on. We're in a lot better shape than most. Yeah, I'm fully aware of Peoria's financial discussion tonight, I am. But I will stand by our contract. That's not going to affect our dispatch contract that we have. They still have to provide that service, and I know there's still some concern regarding level of, efficiency. But, again, we're still talking about options, but I do think we need to move forward on a solution. We have missed calls. We had, we can get into that last year. I have the number for this year. That's a concern of mine, and I'm not blaming Chief Walters. That's a national problem. It's hard to get volunteers, especially during the day, and thank God he's here during the day, or that number would have been probably double that.
Sorry, just a quick, you had said it was 3,000 on the July 2020 finance report. There's 2 line items for $3,000 apiece to Mike Bailey. So it is there. 3,000 plus 3,000 is $6,000. That's in July.
Well, what was approved was, maybe that billing was late. It's 3,000 max a month. That was what I presented, and that's how I've always signed off on the bills. But as far as when it is in the expense report, I'd have to ask Stephanie Turner. But I do know what I asked the board to approve moving forward.
Well, there was 6,000. That's where that number came from. I have had several discussions with Chief Walters regarding response times and calls. There seems to be some discrepancies in those reports, so we do have an ongoing discussion regarding that. But whatever we decide to do, I think it's crucial that we have a direction tonight.
Yeah.
We're running out of time.
I think, with all due respect, I know we really respect the amount of time we have all thought about this. And whether or not we agree or disagree on money spent well on publicity, that's $3,000, $6,000, whatever it is. We're talking about, $450,000 we have to come up with, or $300,000. And I personally, as a trustee, don't feel comfortable making that decision for the residents of Peoria Heights without some sort of referendum. I think that that is the most prudent thing that we can do as trustees, is to put this in a binding or non-binding, I'm not sure, referendum, and come up with a part-time solution. I don't know how my fellow trustees feel about it, but I'm interested in understanding.
I don't necessarily disagree, but the number is 110,000 is what we're discussing. The paid fire chief is 110,000 additional.
Right. Was that for salary and benefits? Is that what?
Yes.
Salary benefits, so was it 300,000?
No, 100, you're right, 110 for a full-time fire chief, but according to Chief Walters, who we all love and respect, he is suggesting also, in addition to that, a potential duty crew. I'm looking down the road.
Right. The issue in front of us now is whether we go with a full-time fire chief or outsource. That is the recommendation, full-time fire chief. The duty crew, as he explained, I believe, last meeting, was as the developments go, as the hotels go up, as the lofts go up, and not only is that revenue now coming in, but he sees a need for the duty crew.
Can I say something? I don't want to talk again. If you pay $110,000 for a fire chief, what's that going to get you? Is he going to be focused on getting volunteers, or what's his main?
Most definitely.
Okay, as you know, Brian, you're dealing with this with baseball. I've been dealing with 25 years in this village. People do not want to volunteer. You can hire anybody and pay them $1 million a year. You're not going to find volunteers in this town. This is a town full of rental property. Nothing against renters, but renters are not invested in their community. They're here one day and they're gone the next. We have very few families in this town that are invested in their community. You are not, you can pay the guy $1 million, you're not going to find volunteers. I've been dealing with this for 25 years with the school district. You're not going to find it. So I don't care who you pay, what you pay them, who you find, you're not going to find it. It's a problem now, it's going to be a problem tomorrow, it's going to be a problem in 5 years. That's my opinion.
I honestly think that we should probably, because we all have a lot of mixed emotions here, and a lot of us that have been here for quite a while, that are a life Peoria Heights, citizen. I mean, I've been here over 35 years. I definitely don't want to see it go. I totally understand, that there's a problem in getting volunteers. There was a problem with it when I was at the schools for 15, 20 years of getting volunteers. I mean, I did a lot of the stuff by myself, not getting volunteers. I get it. It's not going to go away. The volunteerism with the fire department goes up and down, up and down. I get that. I get that, we should we're focusing on safety. That is our goal, is safety and the liability that the Heights would have. But again, and I've expressed this several times, I can't vote on I can't vote on the City of Peoria contract, even though it looks good, the numbers look good, and I get everybody's opinion on it, but I just can't. I can't go that way. So I guess what I would recommend is that we go out and see if we can get it to vote on and see what the citizens want. Would they be willing to pay a safety tax on their property tax? I know I would. I definitely would vote yes for it, because I would want to keep it here. But if they vote no, then we go the other route. But between now and then, we have to do something. We can't just not do anything. So my recommendation all along is to get a fire chief. You can get him cheaper than $80,000 or $110,000. You can get him cheaper than that. That's kind of a weird way of saying cheaper, but the salary, you can get it much lower than $110,000 a year. And let's just, I don't know, let's just get one. Let's get one so we can get one now until we get the budget. We're going to be working on the budget here in the next, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 months. And see if we can get it worked in the budget. Just give us some time, because this isn't a decision we're going to have to be making. You know, we can't make this decision like right this second. I know I can't. I have very mixed emotions here. You know, I can't say I could go one way or another, because I will not go to Peoria. Get me another solution, and maybe I could go with that. I mean, if we put it on the referendum, property tax, I definitely vote on that. I mean, I don't mind paying for something safety that's going to, you know, for the sake of my family and our residents. I don't know how anybody else feels, but that's my take. I can't vote for Peoria, even though it looks good. I mean, that contract, or not the contract, but the proposal looks good. It's just I can't, not with everything that's going on in Peoria. I just can't have my vote go that way right now when they are so messed up with their budget and the crime level that they have and the fires that they have. The protection, I think the safety would be low on their end for us. And like the dispatch,
Nightmare.
Chief Sutton worked his butt off on trying to get the dispatch to stay here in the Heights for as long as we could, until he couldn't do any more because of the state. So now we have to go to City of Peoria Dispatch. What happens to that when they do all this budget cut? I mean, what's going to happen with that? It already sucks to go through Peoria. It's nothing like, we've been spoiled rotten when we've got to deal with, you know, the chief and his staff directly. So just going with Peoria, I can't vote for that, but give me something else, and you know, I could go towards that. And I don't know what everybody else's opinion is, but that's my opinion.
To put it colorfully, Peoria's in a death spiral. Everyone knows it. $40 million deficit this year. I wouldn't be opposed to a non-binding referendum. I'm actually prepared to make that motion if the board supports that.
I have something to say before you do that. If we're going to go with a non-binding referendum, I feel that it is our duty as a board to mail out to every citizen of this community a non-biased, like factual documentation of what is happening. I think while it is very prevalent that this is all going on in our life, I think some people aren't aware that this conversation is even taking place. On top of mailing something, I think that the same factual information needs to be listed on our website, maybe on Facebook. Mike Bailey needs to make a post about it. I think before it goes to a vote, that all of our citizens should have equal opportunity to understand the facts that are being lined up for this, so that they are, you know, well informed when they go in to make a decision. And do we get to choose how it's worded on the ballot?
Yes.
I think that's important that we agree on that as well.
So when we make the motion, we have to actually specify the question. Mr. Walton has recommended that it be totally neutral. I do have something ready whenever we get there.
But that's not going to make the November, correct?
It will.
If
The
we wanna
deadline,
do
the
it
deadline's Thursday.
Tonight.
Deadline's Thursday.
Mary, do you have a quick
Yeah,
question?
just a quick comment. As far as the referendum, two things. As far as the referendum, I obviously said that earlier, but as far as I'm with Brandon, you need to make a decision and at least get something started. If you hired a full-time fire chief on a one-year contract, you're only going to have to, like that you talked about earlier, you're only funding half of that salary in this year's budget. And after the 1 year, if it tanks or the referendum doesn't pass, then he's gone, and then you have to take a different path. And as far as our tax bills, half of you guys probably weren't even born when we lost Richwoods High School. And I know, Mike, I know your mom and dad were furious at Richwoods Township. We lost that high school. Did we lose it on our property taxes? No. How many years did we pay for that? 20, 25 years, and we were never allowed to use that high school. So as far as things getting stuck on our tax bills that we can't use, at least I'm with Cheryl. If it goes up a little bit, it's for something right here in Peoria Heights.
I think that we're still paying on that my senior year is 77.
Well, we were paying on it longer than that.
I think that was the final.
We were paying on it into the 80s. Because I got my tax bills to prove it.
Well, in jest, I think I've just found a way to pay for the fire department. I think someone owes us a rebate.
Yeah.
Okay, any trustees? Anyone else want to go next? That hasn't spoken? Okay, where are we at on this, Trustee Weisenberg?
I believe we're all in agreement with the referendum, so I'm prepared to make the motion if that's where we're at.
Are we going to do the referendum, and then where are we at on the decision about a fire chief?
So
is that something you want to put on next week, or what do you want? How do you want to go forward with this?
I say we get the motion for the referendum out of the way and then move on to the discussion about the fire chief. Is that okay, Mayor?
Okay. I'll second it.
Okay, so I move to add a non-binding advisory question of public policy. Should the Village of Peoria Heights outsource fire protection to the city of Peoria to the ballot of the November 3rd election?
Trustee Weisenberg, please repeat that in its entirety for me.
Certainly. I move to add a non-binding advisory question of public policy. Should the Village of Peoria Heights outsource fire protection to the city of Peoria to the November 3rd ballot? And all I need is a motion to discuss it.
I make a motion.
Second.
Sorry, a second.
I will.
Second?
Okay, I make a second.
Okay. Under the advisement of our village attorney, he did say that the question had to be completely neutral. So that's why I phrased it, should the Village of Peoria Heights outsource fire protection to the city of Peoria? Now, that can be worded any way, but he stressed that it had to be neutral, that we could not lead. We couldn't doom and gloom them, but we couldn't say it's paradise. It's got to be totally neutral.
Okay, so when you put it in that wording, I can tell you probably the majority, 100%, probably 99.9% is going to say no. We already know that. They don't want to do it.
I think
They
you have
don't
to
want to
put
give it to
something
Peoria. I
in there
think
about
they,
tax.
Well,
don't we want the property tax? Or no?
We can't possibly reference a property tax increase because we've not debated or discussed or
we don't even know.
we don't even know if we'd raise taxes. It has
We
to be
assume
completely
that-
neutral.
Well, that is correct, because what Trustee Carter stated, because if you go back to the non-binding referendum for the ambulance, it did state exactly that. would the community be open for a tax increase as well to offset that service? So that is very important. That's a good point, because I'm pretty sure that the answer to that question is going to be
No.
absolutely no. I think that
right.
we also need the next layer to that is how we're going to pay for it, if they would be open to a property tax or a public
Or
safety
a
tax, whatever the
fire
way.
protection district
Could you
or
just
something.
But that's many different questions.
Could you just add to it, read it one more time?
And just before we get too far off track, I actually mentioned the ambulance item to Mark Walton. I wish he was here. I was hoping he'd be here. But we both agreed that was still leading them a little bit. So I wish Mark was here. If we knew we were doing this, he should have been. Anyway, should the Village of Peoria Heights outsource fire protection to the city of Peoria? Because we can't say,
Would they be
will you
willing
pay
to
a
do
higher
that?
tax? Because we're not saying they're paying a higher tax.
Could it just say though, something along the lines like, even if that would include a higher tax, property tax?
In my opinion, that's still leading. That's not neutral.
In a perfect world, we'd have more discussion on this so we could get the numbers in front of us, because all along we were talking about putting this on a referendum for the April election, not the fall. So I think that's kind of where we're at now. So that's shifted all of a sudden. In a perfect world, we'd have more dialogue on this and drill down on the numbers, because this is this is what our attorneys drew up back with the ambulance referendum. And it lays out everything. So, but here we are at a deadline for the November election, trying to come up with some kind of verbiage. And I saw the same email that Trustee Weisenberg did, because I'm the one that talked to him as well today. So in a perfect world, pushing it down the road to April, we would have more time to structure this question, but this is how it is in front of you now. So, and as far as Mark Walton not being here, I wish he was here too, but he had another obligation and could not make it.
Well, I hope he's correct, because on the deadline, as far as the next election, the ballot, I think, has to be certified Thursday.
But we already know what, okay, so the non-binding referendum, as far as putting that goes, no, I'm not going to be for that. We already know what the answer is. The people are not, you
that's what we're discussing.
You read your Facebook post that you started with the Heights happening or whatever it is. A lot of those people in there, they are for keeping the fire department. So they're not, when they go to vote, you already know what the answer is going to be. To me, if it's on where I go vote, it's where we don't know where it's going to go. You know what I mean? We don't know how the people are going to vote. But right now, we do know. We do know that they're going to say, that they want to keep it. They're not going to want to give it to Peoria. What we need to know is, are they willing to put it on their property tax, for whatever you want to call it? That's what I'm saying.
Are they potentially willing to pay higher
And I don't
property
know,
tax?
maybe we don't put it on November. Maybe we do what'd you say, Chief, April?
April election.
The April one. But in the meantime, we still have to figure out what we're going to do between now and
I think you have to
November.
ask the question, but give people information, and that's going to impact how they answer the question, so.
And I still think we give them the information that they said. I think that's very important to give it to everybody that pays property taxes or, that pays rent, whatever they do.
I disagree, because let's use cannabis for an example. When you voted for cannabis legalization, did it say, do you want to vote for cannabis to increase sales revenue? That was not the question. The question was, do you want to legalize cannabis, period? There was no, but it's going to, the people who wanted it didn't say, oh, we're going to have tons of money. Or the people who got it on the ballot said, oh, no, it's going to turn our children into Cheech and Chong or whoever those people are. It was just a yes or no. Do you want to legalize marijuana? Yes or no. Do you want to outsource the fire department to Peoria? Yes or no. It's really simple.
It is really simple, you're right.
You can
It's
only,
simple.
you cannot leave
You already
them.
know the answer.
But we still need to, we have an obligation to educate our
We
residents.
do, not at the ballot box.
No, so if you are suggesting we put it on the November election, does this village intend to push out literature, unbiased literature, to explain to our residents what the different options are?
I don't see why we wouldn't. It's full-on campaign season right now. Everyone's doing it. But the question should be black and white. Do you want to outsource to Peoria? Yes or no? On the ballot. You can send them anything you want in the mail. You can have, let's do a few town halls on it even, like we did before COVID-19. But the actual question on the ballot should be black and white. Do you want to outsource, which is what we're doing, or don't you? The implications of that, people aren't stupid. They know it's got to be paid for. We don't have to,
Okay.
draw.
But so in theory, like we want to keep it, right? Like Cheryl's saying, like the people on Facebook, everyone's saying they want to keep it. So I think when we know the answer to that question, but the question is how do we pay for keeping it in a capacity that has public safety? So if we put on there, are you willing to increase your property taxes potentially to maintain a fire department? I feel like is a slightly more accurate question of do you want to keep it?
If you look back at the last election, I think Dunlap did it. It's actually two questions. One, do you want to retain? And then two, are you willing to pay the extra tax?
Can we do that?
I'm sure you can.
You could have two questions. You don't have to have one
Right.
question. There could be multiple questions.
And that's pretty common, actually. So that would answer both your questions.
But we don't know if we're increasing taxes to pay for it.
But we could put in there potentially. We don't have to put, are you okay?
Well, it's non-binding. It's, right,
Yeah.
correct.
There could
Feel of what the residents are wanting. It's to get the feel to let the.
So we'd have to make two motions then. So the first question would be, do you want to outsource to the city of Peoria? And then question two, do you want your property taxes to be raised? It can't
Potentially.
say because of the fire department, because that's still leading them.
Well, I don't think that the question is, do you want your property taxes to be raised? I think the question is, in order to keep our fire protection under the umbrella of the Village of Peoria Heights, are you willing to pay for it?
Are you in favor of a?
So what would happen?
It would be a line item on wouldn't be like property taxes, it would be.
Like a safety tax or
Safety
fire
tax.
protection.
For the airport.
It'd be a
We pay
line
for
item.
For ICC.
For the safety tax, that money can only go to the safety tax.
I still think it's misleading
It's
because
a fire protection district.
Well, it's not saying, it's asking questions.
Fire protection district, I think is the.
First question I would ask myself is what percentage are we talking about?
We have no clue.
no clue. So,
We don't know
Jess,
that yet.
And we have all these firemen being laid off from Peoria. Are we still going to pick one of them up and those are going to be our fire chief? That's first time in the job. They're not going to want that much money. You offer a little more what they're getting now. They've been well trained by Peoria, the fire department. I think, our fire department's great, does an excellent job. The roads and stuff speak to the job these people do.
I mean, the median for a Peoria, or for a chief for this city this size is actually about 60,000. It's not 80. I mean, that's more up towards your Chicago areas. So, I mean, we could bring it down about 20,000 for a full-time chief, I think, plus benefits. I just don't know. Are we going to have the time to get all of this information together to put this referendum on the November ballot, do you think? To get the information to all the citizens so that they have an informed decision? They can make an informed decision? I mean, I follow the Facebook too, obviously, and I noticed that I would have to say 95% of the people want to keep the fire department here. So I pretty much, just like Cheryl said, I can already tell you what the answer to that one's going to be. I mean, they want it here. Most of the citizens want it here. But again, you're only looking at a handful of people that are following that, so maybe there are a whole bunch of other people in the Heights that don't. I don't know. So, I mean, if we can get everyone the information so that they know, okay, if we keep it, this is what it's going to cost. If we outsource it, this is what it's going to cost. But here's how we're going to have to pay for it. And how about a Saturday like we did before of all getting together and taking a look at the budget that we have right now and seeing if there is anything we can cut? Do you think there's things on there that we could get rid of just until we try to run a new one for next year?
Well, we've been doing that already with COVID. That's why we're in the same spot that we are. But to answer your first question, Trustee Mariscal, if the board voted on this referendum to getting on the November, that I'm confident we'd get the information out to the community.
We could?
Yes.
Okay. I just think that if everyone was informed of everything we've been talking about, because not everybody follows,
Yeah, I agree.
Facebook or whatever, but I think people should know, here's what our options are, and I mean, be transparent about it. I mean, with Peoria, this is what's going on with Peoria. This is how much they're asking for, but they're cutting their own department. Is this what you want to, you know what I mean? I don't know how to do that where we're not throwing our own opinions in there. How are we going to do that?
Yeah, according to Mr. Walton, it's going to be a very black and white question for the ballot.
Do you want it in Peoria Heights? Do you want it Peoria or Peoria Heights,
Right.
correct?
And, if we're going to say, we can't just put a ballot question on the ballot, do you prefer a public safety tax? Okay, how much? Would I be okay with a 1% tax? Sure. Would I prefer a 100% or a 90%? I mean, you have to throw the amount in there, but we don't know the amount because
Public safety tax is a max of 2%, obviously, so it would be 1 or 2%.
And what of 2 of what? Of what?
Increase of.
Annually.
Annually
yeah.
of what number though? 2% of what?
Well, everybody's number would be different. I don't know what people pay on property.
It's your property tax.
Exactly.
It's your 2% of your property tax.
But then that doesn't-
Would you be willing to pay up to 2% of a safety tax?
Right.
But the percentage of the amount that actually comes to the village of that is, like, we've already talked. I mean, like, if we put that on there, would we get that money would come to us?
That would be different, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
we-
so that would be a
Yeah.
line item that would definitely come here to the
It's
village.
specified that it's 2% safety tax for the village of Peoria Heights, so it has to come here. It's not just increasing their taxes, and then the different parties who keep diving into the pie will take part of it. They would have to say that it's 2%.
I mean, how much-
Property tax.
What percent would we need to raise $110,000? Do we even know what that percent is? I mean, I wouldn't want to tax them 2% when we're only needing 0.00036%.
So this was a question I also was hoping Mark or council would be here this evening. I looked into it. So if we created, and I don't know the answer to this, a fire protection district, that doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, I think that money from our budget goes into the fire protection district, and if we need extra money, there's a tax associated with it, right? But if we don't need extra money, there's not an extra tax. Am I right? And is that the right conclusion?
I believe so. I think last time he explained the fire protection district, that was a possible long-term solution, because it takes a long time to get that established. If I remember right, he said a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure how many layers that has to it, but,
Okay.
and again, I wish he would have been here today too, but he had a prior engagement, so.
So that's a question that we need to explore and understand.
I mean, typically, fire protection districts are set up in a geographic area, and they are allowed to levy taxes on property to gather money for fire service.
Okay.
And not always, but sometimes, then trustees are elected in that fire protection district to decide how that money is going to be spent.
Okay.
And
Aren't
that-
we already paying some of the highest taxes in the area?
Yes.
In
Yes, we
Peoria
are.
Heights?
Property taxes.
Okay, so we're just going to keep moving them up and moving, I mean, I own a home here too, so I have to pay taxes too.
Right.
And I complain about it every single year, looking back from just a couple years ago, what I paid to what I'm paying now. I hate the whole tax thing. I hate it. I don't think it's a good idea.
Where are you going to come up with the money then?
We're going to have to cut somewhere else, and there are places we can cut. We're just going to
That's
have
what
to
I've
get
been
thinner,
saying.
and we're going to have to.
We have to create, in addition to cutting, there has to be growth. It is, like, it all works together. There's a synergistic.
Exactly, but don't we have a new shop opening up over there, and we've got a hotel being built over there, and we've got a
Right.
condominium place being built over there, and then you've also got Samuel Avenue. We've got the marijuana place coming hopefully soon, which will generate You know, you've got income coming in. I mean, we have the potential to have all kinds of really good income coming in.
But you need to have something now generating instead of waiting for this to come to us. And
Well, it's
you
like
can al-
Mary,
you
I
can
believe it was
always
Mary
put a
that said,
sunset.
it's a half a budget year.
You
When it
can-
comes to April or whatever, if we decide, hey, this is not working, is Peoria going to take that offer off the table? Do you think? I mean, can they really afford to take that offer off the table?
No.
We don't know.
I can't
No.
answer that.
No, they can't. I'll answer it. Have we gotten our second quarter numbers in yet, Stephanie? I know in the first quarter, we ran a $100,000 surplus. Do we have any indication on what the second quarter is going to be?
I mean, we are 25 days into the second
Okay.
quarter.
Wishful thinking. So we're still at the original motion. How is the first question worded? I assume we still want to put it on the referendum?
Yes.
Either way, it's got to be voted on. So on the first question of do we outsource fire to Peoria, which is what's happening, how do we want to word that? What is it? Outsource is a dirty word, I understand.
Contract with.
Should the village of Peoria House,
Peoria
someone
Heights.
brought up the House League baseball, and it's been about ever since. Should the village of Peoria Heights contract fire protection services
Contract with the city of Peoria.
for fire services? Should the village of Peoria Heights contract, say that again one more time?
Should the village of Peoria Heights contract with the city of Peoria for fire protection services? Sorry.
Like that? Cheryl? Trustee Carter? Don't like it?
I don't, honestly, I don't care what you put on there because I already know what the answer is. So that to me is mute.
Because
That
you
doesn't
think
mean
that
anything
when
to
that question is on the ballot, people will automatically say no because of the nostalgia thing? But are you, I mean, that's an
We already know what
interesting,
the
that's an
answer's gonna
interesting
be, so
position,
it's
and
kind of a waste. I think I would spend more time on educating all the citizens of Peoria Heights that can vote, that pays the property taxes, that pays anything to us, educate them.
Well, I think it's
And then
these are
let's
parallel
concentrate
tracks.
what we're going to put on the April 3rd ballot.
Well,
Okay,
here's the
so you're a
problem.
proponent of
November
pushing it out.
1st is when he leaves, correct? Is that
Yeah.
your last day,
Yeah.
Chief Walters? November 1st?
November 3rd.
3rd
Day of the
is your
vote.
last day? So we're not even going to have the answer to this question back, and then they were going to be standing there going, whoa, what are we doing? And he's gone. I mean, what are we going to do?
We have to have a plan
We have
B.
to make a decision. That's why we have to make a decision. Irregardless of your referendum, we have to make a decision, because if you're planning on hiring a fire chief, that means he's got to get an ad out there, he's got to get applications brought in, he's got to do interviewing, they have to figure all that out, or we got to let Peoria know, hey, as of November 1st, you're taking over. We have to make a decision. I think the referendum is, if he's leaving the same day as the vote occurs, what is that? It's doing nothing for us. Nothing.
So you're an advocate to pushing it to the April ballot? Is that what you're saying?
I am. I'm saying we need to make a decision and go one way or the other on this.
I don't understand
She's not
why
talking
we-
about the April election. She's talking about making a decision tonight on what we're doing.
No. I'm talking about moving it out. Moving
So
it out
you
to
want the
April.
referendum to be April?
Yes, because we don't have, Brandon,
But
if
we
we
still
get the
got the same
vote,
problem.
if we don't
Yeah,
get the vote until November, what are we going to do? It's the same day he leaves.
Why can't
we
we work
still
on
got this-
hiring an interim chief right now?
We still have the same problem, though. If we do it on November 3rd or April 4th, the chief is still gone, and we still have no plan. So we still need a plan now.
Right, I agree. We do need a plan right now.
So if we're going to do.
So we're not waiting for the referendum.
If we're going to do a
right?
full-time chief, we need to set that
she's
up, I
suggesting
think.
we need an interim.
Next
Well,
week.
what trustee Weisenberg said that we would talk about the referendum and then we would talk about the plan. He wanted to finish the referendum first
Right.
and then discuss what our plan was in the meantime.
Even if we do an interim fire chief, we still need,
Okay, so
we still
you're,
need the referendum.
I apologize, I didn't understand that you were thinking, because I was thinking that you were going to wait to see what the vote came back as.
No.
Which really does us no good, because
No,
we're
we-
back in,
Right. No, I
Same
apologize.
vote.
That might have been a miscommunication on my part, but we still have to have an interim plan to get us through the non-binding referendum and then through how we're going to do it. We still need that interim plan, which, in my opinion, is the fire chief.
Full or part?
Okay, so think about this. The fire department's already running the way it's running. They already got a replacement that they voted on to replace him. If we did nothing, it's already going to go like it does every day. It's going to go as it does right now. Correct, Chief Walters?
The only deal is in my replacement.
We're going to have to pay him.
No.
We have no daytime responders.
No, I'm
Right.
saying,
It works.
I'm saying right now, I get that he's leaving November 3rd, and he is, they've already voted on a chief to replace his
Correct.
position. If we did nothing, like we typically did nothing when the chief came on, when Greg Walters was voted in, we did nothing. We, the board, did nothing. They handled it. And then they just told us who the new chief was. That's how it went. So if we did nothing, I mean, we're a little paranoid now because we know ahead of time and we know how chief is and how he's there at the majority of the calls. We know how the volunteerism is low, and that scares a lot of us. But if we did nothing, the volunteer fire department's going to continue running the way it's running, other than the chief that they placed, I don't even remember his name,
The one that
wouldn't
you
be able to
chose-
go on the calls. The calls are going to be lower, but how many actual fire structure calls do we go on during the day? What's it average?
But they don't just respond to fire calls, they respond to all calls.
But, right, okay, keep that in mind. My concern is mainly fire. We have an ambulance and the police that will go to assist if they need assist. We have a backup for that. They back up anyways. I mean, an ambulance gets called, usually the fire will go down and help assist the ambulance. Or the police officers will go down and assist the ambulance. I'm just saying, it's not like we have to make a decision right this second. Let's think about this. If we don't do anything, it's going to be run the same way that it's being run right now. Is it a concern? Yes, it's a huge concern. That's why it got brought to the table. But as far as your referendum of moving it to the city or not, I don't know. I think we should mainly be concerned with the April 3rd ballot. Educate the residents of exactly what's going on here. Here's the budget amount. Here's the dollar amounts that typically we budget for the fire department, which is $265,000 a year. In order to make this go on, we would have to add on, if we do a full-time chief, which you can get at less than $110,000 a year, it gives us a little time to talk about it. You see, just because we don't have it by November 3rd, the whole fire department's going to go under. No, it's still going to run. It's still going to move forward. It's still going to run
What is your
as it
plan?
is.
What is your plan for November 3rd when he leaves then?
Well, they already got the plan as far as the chief goes.
But is that gentleman available like you are during the day to
No,
take?
he is not. He works a day shift job.
Okay, so he works a day shift job, so we are going to have to pay him as the chief.
We're going to have to get a chief, not necessarily him. I mean, we would have to.
post.
So you're saying, I mean, you're basically saying you are making the decision to hire the chief. That's your decision.
Not that
Okay.
particular chief that they voted on, not necessarily.
Okay, so we really have two choices on the floor. One, we go with Peoria, or two, we hire a full-time chief.
So,
Those are the two
I always say
choices.
go
Mayor?
hire full-time chief.
Mayor?
Set goals.
'Cause
I'm
how are we
sorry.
gonna-
So right now, we're discussing the motion regarding the referendum, but now we're apparently back to hiring a chief,
Sorry.
which I don't think can be discussed under our current motion. Is that correct?
Well, I'm giving everybody a lot of latitude here. I mean,
Right.
this
No
is not
kidding.
typically how I like
So
to do
vote.
business, but.
Let's do your
but
vote for your referendum
This
and
is
get
such an
that.
important question, and it's emotional, so I've been letting people go in different directions. I like the idea of an advisory referendum, but I'm getting a little nervous here tonight by rushing it. So this is a decision that, may be one of the biggest decisions this board has made in maybe a decade or maybe a couple of decades, and we have to make sure we get this right. So I like the idea of an advisory referendum. I don't want to rush it. And so let me say there's a sense of urgency around all of this, but rushing it to make this decision tonight concerns me. So I don't know if I answered your question. You have a motion and a second about an advisory referendum. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That is correct. I will note that there was discussion of changing the motion and the wording, so if that's going to happen, I believe we'll need to know.
Well, I'm not sure the motion would even pass at this point.
You can always withdraw your motion, or someone can amend the motion, or make a motion to defer. That's always in order too, so.
Or we can amend the motion to the April 4th
That's what I was going to say.
election and still decide on the wording tonight. Because if we approve this motion, that's what's going to the ballot in April.
Well, if we're going to do it and make it April 4th, then did council say that decision has to be made tonight?
We didn't discuss April. We only discussed November.
Because I would rather, if you're going to go till April 4th, I would rather pause, get it on the agenda, and let everyone, I think good points were made. You made a point of a black and white question. There were others who said you have to give information. And I know you're trying to do the right thing, but I think we're going to be asking a question we already know the answer to. Is that what we really want to do? And I'm just expressing that as a question. So I would hope if we're waiting until April 4th, we would take a week or two to think what everyone wants the question to be. That's what I'm just asking you all to consider.
I have no objections.
I don't either.
I don't either.
I know you and I and Chief Sutton were going back and forth late this afternoon with council, and I know he didn't have a lot of time to research this. I believe this Thursday, the ballots have to be certified by the Election Commission. I hope I'm not sure he's correct, because I think last Thursday was when all referendums had to be in, but that's why I wish he were here tonight, and he would have been here had we known this was going to come up. So,
all right, so I'll withdraw my motion. I make a motion to withdraw.
I forget who made the second.
I did.
Will you withdraw that motion?
I will withdraw my second.
Okay, so, and what would you like on the next agenda for action, Trustee Weisenberg?
I would like the non-binding advisory question of public policy wording for the April, I don't even know when the consolidated election is. 2021.
Oh, the April general election.
It's a consolidated, right?
It would be consolidated in April, wouldn't it? Generals, I don't know, the April election, 2021.
Yeah. Well, we'll get it right when we put it on the agenda, but we understand. And if anyone else wants anything on the agenda, another item under fire, please let administration know. We'll put that on the agenda too.
All right.
But in the meantime, I'm very proud of all of you, because this is finally the discussion tonight we needed to have. And I thank you all for that. So I would encourage you all to keep getting information and keep, without violating the Open Meetings Act, please talk amongst yourselves before next Tuesday, and that would be helpful.
Yeah, Mayor, I would still like for us to, we're not going to decide which direction we're going to go. I mean, we've got the initiative out of the way, the ballot measure, but we still haven't decided, are we hiring a chief?
Well, may I suggest, I think that we could, and Dustin has already worked with Eric Christian at HR Fit. We have the job descriptions. If you want to see what's out there, we could advertise for firefighter and we could advertise for chief and get that process started if the board wants to just take a look to see what's out there.
I think that's a good idea, because it gives us an opportunity to see, just as you're saying, what's out there, who's willing, what the salary is.
See who applies, and we could give a salary range. I'm of the mindset of Trustee Carter. I think that we offer a salary a lot less than the 80, 85,000 we're talking about. I think in the 40 to 50 range. That's my own opinion, but we can do some research along with Chief Walters and do some comparables, but we've got a lot of homework to do, but we can get that advertised, and just, that might help everyone make a decision too.
So,
Would it be, go ahead, sorry. Would it be possible for us to get those job descriptions so we could see them before it's posted?
Yeah.
and I assume we'd work with Chief Walters on developing what that job responsibility entails?
Sure.
So we're moving towards the idea of hiring a chief
Yes.
And but you're talking
In the
about
interim.
in the interim.
in the interim.
Okay.
In the interim.
Potentially permanently, but for right
Depending on
now,
what
yeah.
the April referendum, non-binding referendum tells us. Now, we're going to have one or, well, I guess we can talk about the referendum at a different meeting.
Okay, anything else then that we need to do as the administration, we need to do for you? Okay, so can we move on then? Are we good? Good?
No, I have nothing
All right,
else.
thank you all. So we would be at miscellaneous business. Any miscellaneous business come for the board?
Yes, actually, I have something. Actually, it's public safety. So what can we do to stop semi-trailers from going up Forest Park Hill? It seems like every week there's one stuck, and it's the only route for citizens below the hill, well, one of the most convenient routes. And you have people rushing to get to work, they go up the hill and there's a semi up there. Could we get, as you get to that hill, a flashing sign, okay, that says no trucks? And then under it, maybe a custom sign that says, seriously, your truck is going to get stuck. It's funny, but it's not, because it makes you late. You gotta turn around, you gotta go all the way to War Drive, and you're late for work. And it seems to happen every other day.
Is there a
We
fine
gotta
for
do
these
something.
trucks that do that? Whenever, because this happened before. Do they get a fine for, and how substantial is it?
It is a fine, but as far as answer Trustee Weisenberg's question, it's kind of like answering the question, how do you stop speeding? I mean, if they don't read the signs, there's a ton of signage. Obviously, what's happening is they're relying on their GPS, and that's the way their GPS is taking them, and they're not really paying attention to the signs. And that's increased a lot this month, so I'm getting just as many complaints as you are. But to answer your question, how do we stop it? By the time they see the flashing sign, they're already there unless we put it down on Gardner Lane. But that's what a lot of them are saying, is that we're just following the GPS.
How about a
Can we
brick
have
arch
maybe
that is
contact
so high it won't
GPS,
let a
because if
semi?
they're using Waze or that type of thing.
Or Google Maps.
Yeah, you
We can
can
contact
actually, you know this better than I do. You can probably communicate with Waze or with GPS, Google Maps, to say this is, not okay for trucks over a certain capacity.
In my job, we have GPS, and we have Google's Maps with our program that we have on our phones. And with Route 6 being closed down, it has redirected us, and also with the bridge, redirected us around on how to get, saying this is the best way to go. Now, sometimes it messes up, but it has, they do that. They will give you a route that, and you can have it done, that you can't go that way. I mean, I've had it many times tell me, you can't go Route 6, you got to go over to War Memorial. And
Mike, would you give this some thought and report back to us at the next meeting, maybe some
Went out of our way to get bigger signs. We got bigger signs than the last time.
Can we get flashing ones?
Oh, we can get anything you want.
I mean, we don't have to go super expensive. I mean, if,
Can we try to?
Solar power.
right, something real simple.
When it comes down to it, people like the chief said, they're not gonna read the signs. We have the hill closed, there's 5 hill closed signs, they either just don't believe, they just don't read them. So in my opinion, you can put whatever you want up there. You can put spotlights, people are not gonna pay attention.
Can we try to contact Google Maps and Waze and try to see if they'll do something?
Yeah.
Clearance is 10 feet. The trucks are gonna stop.
There you go.
Welcome to Peoria Heights. This is 10 feet tall.
No, we can just flag anything you want.
I think we need to try to contact Google Maps.
Why don't you bring us a couple of recommendations at the, okay, anything else under miscellaneous? Anything else? Trustee Gett?
I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned.
Put a little thing up, they gotta drive up.